Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I told you guys a couple of episodes ago that I accidentally messed up the recording for a bunch of Q&As that I did. And I still haven't really been able to fully recover the questions that I answered. But I've got a couple, so here we go. Let's start with Magdalene's question. She says, I am happy to report that I have officially recovered from HA because I've had 3 consecutive normal periods. However, I'm struggling with this voice in my head that says, for example, lunch has to be at exactly 12. Even if I'm not hungry at all, it's like I absolutely have to eat then. If I try to ignore the thought, wanting to wait until I'm actually hungry, it becomes a blaring alarm that I cannot ignore. This happens with other meals too. Do you know why this might happen and how to fix it? So it sounds like, Magdalene, that you still haven't completed the refeed process. So this is really interesting. When you're going through recovery, you're not just going to automatically be released of your body's fears of restriction immediately, and it's not going to get over the fact that it's been hungry for so long overnight. So a lot of people increase their food for recovery, rightly so, but they still maintain perhaps some level of control somewhere, which is normal and expected. It is very hard to go from maximum control to complete freedom overnight. That's just not really realistic. So have grace. But you're going to probably eat more here and here, but still maybe not so much here and there. Random examples would be, you're still eating some low-fat things, or you're still backloading your night to eat more in the evening than you are in the morning because you're more comfortable that way. You don't like feeling like you've eaten a lot earlier in the day and then going ahead and eating more at night. That's still a no-go for a lot of people with recovery, and that's going to continue to cause some type of binge restrict cycle. This can look like what Magdalene's describing, where she still has rules around when she can eat, meaning she's still in a restrictive mindset, which means her brain is still processing food is not abundant, food is not available completely. Someone is not allowing me to have food. And so then that person, that person's body or brain is going to still drive them towards overeating later, is going to still ring alarms for now it's time to eat, right? So I remember I used to watch the clock, right now it's 12:06. I would be in the kitchen right now, or I would have started cooking at 11:55 because I need my lunch at 12 and I'm watching the clock. I don't want to eat it any earlier, even though I'm still really hungry because my breakfast was not sufficient, right? These behaviors cannot continue and you expect to have a full recovery. So it's not normal, but it is common. And what you need to do, Magdalene, is eat when you want to eat and how much you want to eat. And what will happen when you start front loading the first half of your day is you will find you will not, quote, overeat later in the day. And you'll find you actually do have a lot of control around food because your entire fear is that you have no control around food. So you have to have these rules in place because otherwise you cannot be trusted and you cannot have control around food, right? So the time of day thing creates structure, rules, boundaries, and balance, at least you think so, around your food and your eating. And so this makes you feel safe and comfortable and in control and you prefer it this way. But the truth is that's actually causing you more hunger, more restriction, and your brain is trying to override you and push you to eat more. So she's saying even if she's not hungry at all, she still has this rule in place. She absolutely has to eat then. So this is a little bit different, but I still wanted to address that issue first because I feel like that's more common, right? So she absolutely has to eat even if she's not hungry. This is still, this is mechanical eating. Mechanical eating is not a bad thing in recovery. Sometimes we do need to make ourselves eat. But if you feel that it's causing an issue, you know, the more I like look at this question, like, what's actually the problem? Like, hang on, if you feel like it's causing it, what? Yeah, just eat. Okay. All right. So hunger happens at the first thought of food. You do not have to actually have a rumbling stomach to be considered hungry. If your brain goes food and you're not necessarily feeling feelings of like sensations of hunger, that's just your digestive process beginning. Digestion begins at the beginning of the thoughts of food. It's not actually ideal or normal to be hungry, so please everybody stop glorifying that. You don't need, this idea that you should only eat when you're hungry has gone completely it's just been totally blown out of proportion. Because people think that that means you should have the physical sensation of hunger. No, it starts at the first thought of food. So Magdalene, if you're thinking about food, even if you don't feel hungry and you're in an HA state, do not be listening to your actual hunger cues, because you can't trust those right now. That's just not the reality for women in HA. You need to eat when the thought of food begins. Then when you go to the kitchen, the production of bile and saliva starts to happen. This is prepping your body for the digestive process. Cooking is a whole part of digestion. By the time you go to eat, you have the appetite for it. If you're thinking about food, you are hungry at the moment. That is just how it goes. And it probably will be that way for the foreseeable year or so of recovery. Okay, question number 2 is from Emily. She says, another big thank you for all you do and answering my question earlier in the year. Oh, you're welcome. I've started eating more and I put a little bit of weight on and started to address my eating disorder mindset and habits. A long way to go, but it's still a start toward better mental health. I wanted to come in for a bit of an update. I've had a bleed for the last 2 months now. Woohoo! Only the last bleed lasted about 10 days each time, with 4 days of heavy bleeding and the rest light. And then the last month, my cycle was around 30 days, and I bled for 10 days, and I stopped for 5, and then bled heavily for another 5. I started getting cystic acne around days of suspected ovulation as well. Do you have any advice on what might be going on? Do I need to keep going with the weight gain and hope this balances out my hormones? I actually replied directly to Emily, and I said, I want you to know that in reading your question, this particular issue isn't actually wildly common, and I would recommend a deeper dive into your labs, chart, food log, and all the things to determine if you're still dealing with low hormone function or if in fact some other hormone disruption is now rearing its head now that you've restored your cycle. She replied and she said, I think it's probably something to do with my food and maybe low hormone function. But at the moment, there's no way to know as on my next cycle after this. I got pregnant. Congrats! So that's another crazy journey, and it's been very humbling as you suddenly cannot ignore what your body wants and needs. Yeah. It's got me like, this is what I should have been doing the whole time. Listening to my rest cues and food cravings. Well, okay, girl. Congrats. That's so good. I'm stoked for you. And it sounds like regardless of the hormonal issue, you ended up having enough to get pregnant. I would just keep an eye on those symptoms when you come around postpartum, because it's not super normal to bleed and stop and then heavy and then not, and then 5 days later, that's abnormal and that's not really associated with HA. But it could be associated with your body just like bing bang starting back up, right? Like when you go through puberty as a young woman, you actually don't have a lot of pattern and you don't really match the textbook as much as someone who goes into their mid-20s. It just takes time to stabilize. This process kind of happens again when you come out of recovery. So it can be hard to tell, like, is this just a process of like an old rusty car starting up again? Or do you need to look further into the case? So oftentimes symptoms can cross over. Estrogen dominance or high, like overproduction of hormone type issues can look similar to low hormone production type issues. So you do need to look at this in context of the whole entire person. This is why we do discovery calls before we actually take on a client, just to be certain of what's going on with them. But yeah, good luck. I love this for you. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Something that popped into my brain is these people with issues like this, many of you resonate, right? You have a lot of things that you're unsure about, uncertainty. Can I do this? Can I do that? I have information sessions coming up at the beginning of April. I have one on March 31st and April 1st, going over the Restore Your Fertility program. So go to the hasociety.com/restore info, and you can register for one of the sessions there. And in those, I'm going to take you through like who coaching is good for, how it works, what problems it's going to solve. And I think this would be really good for a lot of you listening. The group program is a more affordable option than one-on-one coaching, but you get everything that one-on-one coaching provides. It's just in a group setting. So I think it'll be really good. We are offering a free consultation to anyone who, to someone who shows up to one of the 2 sessions. And it's a good opportunity to talk with me live and actually meet me and get your questions answered, talk about your case live. And that's kind of like how we do the discovery calls, but it's a group information session. So if you have questions that you want to ask me directly, I would recommend coming to one of those sessions and then just seeing if the program is right for you, and you could win a consultation. All right, like, subscribe, check out the links below. Thank you so much. And if you have a question you want to submit to the show, please comment below.